Hello there, welcome to this video lesson in CPI 111. In the most recent video, I talked about the basic mechanics of a maze game, and we set it up. Now we're going to move into Chapter 7 and actually start working with the Koala maze game and get us towards being able to do the next assignment, which is to create 3 levels of the Koala game, an easy level, a medium level, and a hard level, and then to actually run it with some people and get their feedback on the gameplay. So the next assignment is less about creating a game from scratch, less about the mechanics of how to create a game, and more about the design of the game itself. But to get there, we actually need to know what's going on inside our Koala game. So what I've got here is a version of the Koala game that you can download from the Course Blackboard site. This is Koala 3 is the name. If you happen to have the CD-ROM from the book, it's also on that CD-ROM in the Chapter 7 section. So let's see what we've got, and you'll see how familiar it is to what we just created in the previous lesson, but it looks a lot nicer here. Okay, we've added a few things to this game to make it look more like a game. It's got a start screen, just like you did on your previous Evil Clutches Dragon game assignment. And then we can come into our level, and this should look familiar. It's very much like the maze we created a few minutes ago. We've got 3 player characters. They walk in just the same way. In fact, they have the exact same events and actions associated with them. If they collide with a wall, then they stop. And if they make it all the way to the exit, then they'll get out of the level. Let me get just one of them out to show you how it works. Alright, shows how it shows that a koala has been saved up at the top of the screen. And there's also a second room, so I'm going to leap ahead and show you what the second room looks like. Okay, saved all 3 koalas. And then we zoom into the next room. Now you've got 5 koalas, and you need to get them out of the 5 exits. One difference is that here the exits disappear once you get the koala saved. Okay, and if you were to finish that second level, you would move to a congratulations screen. So let's take a look just at the pieces that we're going to start adding on, and also look at the objects that we created in the previous lesson, where we just had a very simple graphics, to see that really it's almost the same functionality. So we've got a lot more objects here because we have a starting screen and an ending screen. But take a look at our wall object. Exactly the same. It's visible and solid, but nothing associated with it. And before we had our player object that was that red square, now we've got the same thing. It's the koala object, and in fact it has the exact same events and actions. One added piece is that because our koala sprite actually has left, right, up, and down, and stand versions of our sprite, the only additional event and action we've added to our player object, our koala object, is that we changed the sprite to match the direction that the sprite should be facing, that the koala should be facing inside the game. So if you remember before, in our begin step event, we had our player object stop moving so that it was set to a fixed move of 0 in no direction. So we did the same thing here. But here also we changed the sprite into the koala stand sprite. And it's an animated sprite, and so we set the subimage to -1 so that the animation will continue playing, and we set the speed to 1 for the animation. For the left move, I'll just show one of these, exactly the same setup. We check to see if we're aligned with the grid, or if we're not aligned with the grid, and if we're not, we exit. And then if we are aligned with the grid, then we check to see if there's no wall to our left, then we can move to the left, and we change our sprite to the koala left sprite, again letting the animation play at a speed of 1. And if there is a wall to the right, then we stop our movement and change the sprite back into the stand sprite. And do this just the same thing for the up, right, and down. So the work you did on the previous video will come in very handy here. We've got a controller object that's doing a little bit more than we had in the previous game because we're showing the number of lives that a player has. It's sort of interesting if you think about the way the lives usually work. You start often with 3 lives, and if the player gets killed, it drops to 2, drops to 1, drops to 0, and the game is over. We're using the same global lives variable inside GameMaker, but actually we're using it instead we're using it to show the number of koalas that have been saved. So in this case, for our lives, we're going to start by setting them to 0 because we haven't saved any koalas, and then as they're saved, as they reach the exit in the level, then this number of lives will go up. We have a step event. Here we check to see if we have no koalas left in the room. Then we're going to go on to the next room with an animation or a transition, pausing briefly to let the player notice that they've won. We have a draw effect. We're going to draw the text that is an image that says something like "Sprites Rescued." That's going to show up in the top left-hand corner of our room. And we're going to have a press key event escape, which will take the player back to the menu screen. So a way of getting out of the game, rather than hitting the escape key and exiting the game, we're going to use the escape key to go back to the front room. In order to do that, we need to have our global settings set up so that we turn off the escape key. So we've deselected let the escape key end the game in our global settings. Just a couple of other objects to look at. We've got our exit, just like we had in the previous game. And we've got a collision event so that when the exit collides with the koala, first we'll check if they're aligned with the grid. And if they are, then we'll destroy the koala. We'll set the lives to 1, which will cause the koala to show up in the top of the screen, and then we'll end our block. And when I say we're going to make it so that the koala, the number of lives saved, will show up at the top of the screen. That's here under the draw event of our object, our controller object. You see we've got this draw the lives as image. It's going to take the koala stand sprite, and it's going to use that to draw the life images, and it will just automatically, built into GameMaker, it will continue drawing the live images as we add them up, and it will position them properly, going from left to right from wherever we start placing them. So we're starting at 150 pixels on the x-axis, so again up near the top of the screen, and then as we gain lives, additional images of this koala standing sprite will appear. Last but not least, we have our second kind of exit object. Also has a collision event. Works just the same way as the previous one, except here we destroy the koala, and we also destroy the exit itself so that it will disappear out of the room. Okay. So we've got all that set up, but it's not a terribly interesting game yet. Next, what we're going to do is add some hazards, some dangerous elements to the room that we don't want our koalas to run into. And here's where we can start making the game both challenging and more fun. We're going to create a few different hazards for our koalas to avoid. If you continue to look in the version of the koala game file that I put up on the Blackboard site, you'll see that already in the game project there's a TNT sprite that will be for some TNT that will blow up our poor koala. There's a horizontal saw and a vertical saw that will move back and forth through the corridors of our maze trying to cut our poor koala. There's also a dead koala sprite for when the koala gets hit by one of these things. We're going to start by creating our poor dead koala object. What they're going to do is they're going to fly off the screen when they collide with one of our hazards. Not too scary. This is sort of a kids level game, and to make that happen, we're going to use the gravity action. So taking our koala sprite, let's go ahead and create a koala object. Remembering that this is the dead koala, so I'm calling it obj_koala_dead. Choose our poor dead koala sprite, set the depth to -10 so that it will appear in front of other objects. Let's add an event, a create event, and we're going to do a move free action. We're going to set the direction to 80. Now, we've played with direction in previous assignments, so here's your challenge to see if you can remember which way that will be pointing. And we'll set the speed to 15. And we're going to also include a set gravity action. And we'll set the direction to 270, which is straight down. And we'll set gravity to 2. We're going to add another event. This is going to be an outside room event. So that what would happen is that the koala collides with a hazard, it then dies, it drops down toward the bottom of the screen and off the screen. And then when that happens, we're going to have an outside room event and include a sleep action. And we'll have to just sleep for a second. We'll have a restart room event. And I'll do it with no transition. So, alright, so we've got our dead koala set. Now let's create our TNT object. That'll be the first of our hazards. For this one, we'll have a collision event. And we're going to be looking, of course, for when it collides with our koala. And we'll have a change instance action. And we're going to change not ourselves, but we're going to change the other into the dead koala. And we're going to say to perform the actions that are on that koala. Alright, now let's open up. We need to make a small fix to one of our other objects. So we're going to come into our controller object. And we're going to open up our step event. And we're going to include another test instance count action. And so we've got this test instance count. And then we're going to include include a check for the number of instances, and then we'll set the object to the dead koala. So what I mean is, right up at the very top up here, we're going to drag another test instance count. This time we're setting the object to dead koalas and seeing if there are 0. So by doing this, what we've done is we've made it so that this has to be true. There have to be no dead koala objects in the room, and also there have to be no koala objects in the room. And if both of those things are true, then we'll move on to the next room. Alright, before we go on, let's give this a quick try with just our TNT object. So let's come down to our rooms. Again, there are a whole bunch of them. Go to the first room and open it up. And then add some TNT, somewhere, anywhere you'd like. So I'll select the TNT object. Oh, I forgot to make sure I've got a TNT sprite associated with it. And let's see. Oh, I'll just put it here. So here I am in the room. Bring my koalas down. If this poor guy runs into the TNT, you'll see he falls off, and then we start the level over again. Okay, works well. Let's continue on and create our saw objects. Making sure that we give it the horizontal saw sprite. And let's add a create event. And a move fixed this time. And we're going to set the right arrow, and we'll set our speed to 4. So it's moving fairly slow. Then we'll include another event. This is going to be a collision event. And we'll have it a collision event with the wall object. And if we run into a wall, we're going to have a reverse horizontal move. So our saw will begin moving toward the right, wherever we place it, as long as there's space to move to the right. And as soon as there isn't, as soon as it hits a wall, then it will turn around in reverse direction and start going the other way until it encounters another wall, and then it will turn around and go the other way. We also need to have a collision event for when it runs into our koala. So for this one, we're going to change the instance of the koala. So we select Other, and we're going to change it into the dead koala. And we want to perform the actions that are associated with that so that it will fall down off the bottom of the screen and restart the room. Right, that's all we need for that one. Now we're going to create a same idea for the vertical saw. And have our create event. We're going to do a move fixed this time. Oh, not free, sorry. We're going to do a move fixed, and we'll have it go down initially. Doesn't really matter, but we'll say down, and set again our speed to 4. Add a collision event, again with the wall. But this time we're going to have a reverse vertical action. And again, we'll have a collision with our koala. Change our sprite of the koala, so choosing Other into the dead koala, and then we're going to perform the events that are on that dead koala object. Okay, I'm going to save all that. Come back down into our room. Open it up, and now let's place our vertical saw in a vertical spot. So maybe here, and I'll choose the horizontal saw, and I'll place it here. And we'll test it just to make sure everything's working before we continue on. So our saws are moving. Let's have this guy get hit by one. Good. Drops off there. We restart the room. So you can see it starts to be a challenge in terms of having multiple hazards going on at once. You have to start to be pretty tricky in terms of your timing of how you maneuver all of these guys. Okay, but they all seem to be working the way we'd like them to. Have one of our guys reach the exit. Okay, everything's working right so far. Next we're going to fix the visuals a little bit. You will no doubt notice that our walls in our room are not particularly attractive. So we want to fix that by replacing these default black square wall objects, or not replacing them, I mean, but what we're going to use in conjunction with them are tiles. And let me show you how those work.